My name is Andrew Doherty. I'm a blogger, a storyteller, and I'm also a sometime tour guide in the local area here. My own hometown or home village is Cheekpoint, which is a fishing village, and it's located 7 miles from Waterford city. Originally, Cheekpoint was probably just a collection of boats pulled up on the local quayside here. But in the late 18th century, a guy by the name of Cornelius Bolton had this vision to create a mail packet station, which was how the mails travelled between Waterford and the UK. And Cheekpoint became the hub for that, and for the next 50 years it would have seen a huge amount of vessels coming in here on a daily basis, bringing passengers, bringing freight and bringing mails between Cheekpoint and Milford Haven in Wales. After that finished, it reverted back to fishing, and principally most of the people when I was growing up in the village would have been fishermen. They would have fished salmon in the summertime and eels, and they would have fished herring in the winter time down at Dunmore East. And a lot of the boats that you see around here today would have been involved in any of those kinds of trade. And when I was growing up, there were at least 30 salmon licenses here in the village, and you couldn't walk on the quay, but you were bumping into fishermen either coming or going to their fishing trade. In my blog every week I try to capture some of the tales, some of the stories and some of the personalities that would live in the area or would have lived in the area in the past. So I talk about things like sailing boats, I talk about steamboats, I talk about merchant seamen, lads that would have left the village here and would have went to sea and took part in all kinds of incidents, both in the First and Second World War and throughout the ages. For example, the pub here behind us, McAlpine's, the Shore Inn, would have been a feature in one of the stories where we were talking about press gangs. The press gangs were basically marauders. They were guys off of British naval ships, and their duty was, and they were paid on the basis of how many men, as they went around villages like Cheekpoint, Passage, Ballahack, raiding, looking for men that they could basically impress into the naval service. They'd drag them off, bludgeon them over the head if they had to get them into the boats, bring them aboard the naval vessels and basically put them into service for 7 years. And one of the old yarns that was here was of the press gang arriving in Cheekpoint in the late 18th century, crashing into the pub over here behind, and an old fella ran out the door, a young fella ran out the door, fled into a neighbour's house, jumped through the window and landed in the lap of the chap's daughter. She started to scream and he gagged her, and the man came in, said, right, he said, it's either the press gang or my daughter. So he chose the daughter. But for years afterwards, when he'd get drunk in McAlpine's there and at the bar, he'd mumble into the pint, I should have went with the press gang, I should have went with the press gang. So those kind of stories, they're legion here in the village, do you know what I mean? And when I was growing up, you'd hear them and you'd say, geez, that could never be true, there could never be that could have never happened in Cheekpoint. These are things that happened way far, much further, they happened in England or whatever. But of course they all did, and now with the onset of the internet and being able to research from the comfort of your own home, it's very much easier to find the sources of these stories and to prove that they're actually correct. Smugglers, pirates, you name it, it all happened here in Waterford Harbour. And one of the things I love to do is to find those stories and communicate them in a new way to a younger audience so that they understand and appreciate the heritage that we have here in the harbour, in the village, places like Cheekpoint, and to try and bring them alive again for people.